tonight we do have two deputations. The first deputation request the first deputation is by Ben Browne concerning motion 16G 148, the South Barrie Secondary School, 225 Prince William Way, site plan approval. I'll call on Mr. Browne to come on down to the podium. Oh, he is there. I thought so. I knew I'd seen you, Ben, but I couldn't see you over the podium. Ms. Browne, welcome to Barrie City Council. You have 10 minutes to make your deputation. I will give you a warning when you hit the 10-minute mark, and then we have to cut you off a little bit after that. So if you could keep your remarks to 10 minutes, much appreciated. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Dear Mayor Lehman and City Council, what are some of the major lessons that parents teach their children? Do as you're told and have respect for authority are two of those very lessons. Kids are taught from a young age that they must follow rules and directions set out by people in positions of authority, whether they are parents, teachers, or later in life, bosses. At some point along the line, the Simcoe County District School Board became of the mind that rules and policies no longer applied to them. They began to create their own rules, and when they were met with resistance, they pushed and pushed until they got what they wanted, reminiscent of what I did on a fairly regular basis as a toddler. The SCDSB has character traits that they apparently wish to instill in their students and that are displayed beautifully throughout the Taj Mahal, otherwise known as the Roy Edwards Room at the SCDSB Education Center. However, despite their desire to embed these traits in 50,000 students stretching all the way from Bradford to Collingwood, administration and trustees at its highest level are failing to exhibit any of these character education traits within themselves as leaders in our Board of Education. Before Council this evening is an item that has been at the forefront of many Council meetings over the last year and a half. It is with regard to the site plan for the new South Barrie Secondary School. Despite clear policies and guidelines set out by the City of Barrie, the SCDSB has continually attempted to blatantly disregard these guidelines to preserve their own personal agendas and motives. They have consistently attempted to bully, slander, and deceive Council in meetings and in the media in order to make their position seem stronger and belittle the intelligence of the people who do this for a living. What administrators at the SCDSB fail to realize is that they are not urban planners, architects, or politicians, but rather educators with very little background on all aspects of designing a school or any building for that matter. They have time and time again tried to use what little knowledge they have to guilt Council into giving them what they want, and apparently it has worked. One lesson that I'm sure is taught in parenting classes, although I've never taken any, is don't reward bad behavior. This is just standard practice. When you do something wrong, you should not be rewarded for it. By approving the site plan in front of you this evening, which is essentially the same site plan you saw back in December of 2014, you are doing just that. By approving this site plan, you have essentially wasted 18 months of the construction process of this school by rejecting it only to approve it more than a year later. You have allowed the school board to bully, pressure, and guilt you into this decision. They are the ones with dirty hands in this situation, not the city. So why, after all they have said and done to and about Council over the last 18 months, would you even consider approving this site plan? It doesn't make any logical sense. Yes, a school needs to be built desperately, as the number of 1,193 students over capacity for next school year would indicate, but at what cost? I don't see this as a cost that Council should be willing to pay. By approving this site plan, you are putting in doubt your own integrity as politicians, and you are rewarding what is frankly disgusting behavior on behalf of the very people that are supposed to be role models for society's children. Both you and the board have been saying that it is all about the kids and what's best for kids. In my opinion, the only thing that is best for kids is to have a school built that follows guidelines and policies set out by the city. If the SCDSB were taking student consideration into account, They would have constructed a site plan that meets urban design guidelines and the school would be close to, if not already complete. But instead, all that has changed over the last 18 months is time, and while that time is precious, approving the site plan will not begin construction of the school any sooner. So the only rational thing to do is to stick to your guns once again and reject a site plan you have already rejected multiple times. By approving this site plan, you are also setting a precedent that will impact the city for years to come. If the site plan is approved, you're effectively telling future developers, we do not have to follow this city's policies if we push hard enough. This is going to cause major issues for designs of future buildings in this city that could be detrimental to the development of the city. Further, this precedent-setting decision could cause developers or businesses in similar situations to this one who did not have their site plan approved to come back fighting at the city for whatever additional fees they incurred as a result of not having their plan approved. For example, OMB expenses. This type of decision has major effects on the reputability of the guidelines set out by the city. It puts Mayor Lehman and council in a difficult position in the future of trying to decide what follows the guidelines and what does not, instead of having a concrete and specific policy as to what does and does not adhere to urban design guidelines. So, in short, this decision not only has consequences currently in terms of development of the city of Barrie, but also is likely to have severe implications on future and even past development. I ask council to please consider all the ramifications that could possibly arise from making such a precedent-setting decision that will have effects on the city for years or even decades to come. I am a student currently in my 5th year of high school at the historic Barrie Central Collegiate, and many of the peers with whom I associate are 2 and 3 years younger than me. I also ask council to consider this question. What does approving this site plan teach students? Well, in my estimation, what this approval teaches students is that it's okay to disregard authority and rules, and that if they deny and refuse to abide by rules long enough, they will eventually get what they want. Is this really the type of thing we want our youth to think? I don't think it is. Many students in this county are quite knowledgeable about the situation, so I guarantee that approving this site plan after all that has occurred will have an effect on the students of this county. Rules are meant to be followed and authority is meant to be obeyed. In this scenario, the city is the authority figure over the SCDSB, meaning that by approving this site plan, council is waiving its authority over a developer and allowing them to get what they want. Students need to be taught that it is not and should not be standard operating procedure, and that when someone outlines expectations for you to follow, you must respect and abide by these rules or policies. Although you may not agree with all the conditions, they are there for a reason and meant to be followed. Accountability and respect are already dwindling drastically in this generation, so when we can hold people accountable for their actions, why should we should never shy away from an opportunity to do so. And who better to hold accountable for foolish and child behavior than a school board whose administrators have been having temper tantrums often seen in kindergarten classes across this county. It should also be noted that the school board was involved in forming these very urban design guidelines in question. As someone who lives in this city, is a student of this board, and have many friends and a brother whose academic careers are impacted by a decision of this magnitude, I sit back and think to myself, wow, this school board is too arrogant, entitled, and self-righteous to follow guidelines that they helped establish because the shoe doesn't fit the foot. They have whined and whined in internal meetings and in the media about the fact that these guidelines are unfair, yet they helped to create them. If that right there is not enough of an incentive to debunk this site plan again, I don't know what is. The SCDSB needs to be held accountable for their behavior and have their site plan rejected once again. What right do they have to behave in the way that they have and still be given approval for a site plan that clearly violates the city's urban design guidelines they themselves were involved in creating? You have done it umpteen times in the past, so I ask you to simply do it one more time. The school board does not deserve this, and have been completely unwilling to compromise in an effort to get this school built. The city's policies are clear and concise, so it must be the school board and not council who blinks first in its position in order to build this school. It is a must for our community, but again, at what cost? And while the OMB is a dreadful solution to this needless impasse, if this needs to go to the OMB to maintain the validity of guidelines set out by the city, then so be it. I urge council to strongly consider everything I have said, and in response, once again reject the site plan submitted by the Simcoe County District School Board for the better of our city and the students of Simcoe County. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, Councilor Morales, thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Browne, for your deputation. Questions? Questions only, not debate, from members of council. Questions for Mr. Browne, if any. Councilor Silveira.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. To you, to Mr. Browne. Thank you very much for the presentation. Very inspired. Mr. Browne, do you have any experience in planning?
No, I do not.
And without no experience in planning, how you come out with this input that it would be bad for Barrie that we are being accepted this point?
Sorry, I didn't quite understand.
I said without no experience in planning, which you already stated you don't have it. How you come up with this presentation that would it be bad for Barrie if you be approved this planning?
Well, because I just feel like if the urban design guidelines have been violated, which has been the case many times before, I think that, as I mentioned in my deputation, that it sets a precedent for other developers that will in the future come forward in this city looking to build different buildings and different things, that if they try to complain or find wiggle room in guidelines, that they won't have to follow these guidelines that possibly they themselves helped in creating.
Mr. Browne, do you follow up councilor every week? Do you know the procedures?
I do not follow council every week, no.
Do you know that sometimes we have to disagree with the staff and we have to approve something that is not required from staff?
Sorry,
Do you
Councilor
understand
Severa.
that?
Councilor Severa, you're getting into debate. If you wanted to ask Mr. Browne questions about what he's just had to say to us for clarification only, that's what's allowed. You don't get into debate about whether he has qualifications or his position or his background.
Oh, well, Mr. Mayor Lehman, I think that I have the right to go through my questions and ended up in
Only on
what
his
I'm gonna have.
deputation, sir.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Browne, do you have any opportunity to give another deputation in the city of Barrie before that?
Have I given any others?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
You state that, our kids have to do what is told all the time. I don't have to agree with that. I have to, what I believe is that according with your deputation, okay, I believe we have to have an open-minded question. Even God has been questioned many times with Moses and other characters on the Bible. And I believe that, tell your kids we have to be told, no question.
Councilor Severa, if you could get to your question on the deputant's content.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mr. Lehman, if you allow me, I'm going to go through that, if you allow me anyways. What I'm asking is that you believe, according with the deputation, you always have to do what you're told, question authority, especially politicians?
Yes, I do.
You never questioned politicians before?
Well, I don't think that rules and policies that are clearly set out should be tampered with, essentially, yes.
Mr. Browne, do you understand that if you don't approve this planning, probably the school board is going to build outside Barrie. You think this is going to be good for the kids of Barrie to be busing all the way to
Councilor
Innisfield?
Silveira, I'm sorry, that was not part of the deputation. You were allowed to ask questions of clarification on what Mr. Browne has had to say, not debate the issue with him about potential consequences of different council actions. So,
Mr.
question on something that Mr. Browne has made a deputation on is in order, otherwise it's not in order.
Mayor Lehman, if you allow me to ask these questions and you interrupt me before, probably we're going to get ahead and finish this before 9 o'clock.
If you could move to your question, sir.
Thank you. Do you understand, if you are against the planning, that won't be good for the kids in the city of Barrie? Do you understand that?
Well, I think if that is indeed the case, if council believes that it is not in the best interest of students to reject this site plan, then it should have been accepted or approved, a year and a half ago, because the site plan, as I see it, has minimally or not changed at all from when it was first accepted. So if it is council's belief that the students of this city need a school, which it is, they do, and they think that this site plan should be approved at this point with little to no changes made since it was first submitted in, I believe, December of 2014, then it should have been approved in December of 2014 so that the construction of the building could have been started and the building could be close to, if not already completed, so that students could enter the school in September of 2016 and allow for less students at Innisdale Secondary School and allow for the betterment of the education of all the students, in this city. So if that's the belief, then I think the site plan should have been accepted 18 months ago instead of tonight.
And to you, Mayor Lehman, to Mr. Browne, and I agree that. That's make my point here that not every time or all the time a politician's right, and that's a good time, is a good example of. Thank you so much for clarifying that. The politicians always right. Thank you.
I hesitate to ask, but any other questions for the deputant? Councilor Ainsworth.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Browne. Seems this is quite a little mess we've got ourselves in here. I just wonder if you agree with me. And I think that you sort of said in the words that you just shared with us that you feel that, see, from my point of view, all I'm really voting on is there going to be a building on the corner or isn't there? Because the school already has permission from the city to put it in the location that it originally wanted to. So
Sorry,
that's why.
Councilor Ainsworth, that's not correct.
Is that not
that's not
a
correct.
question?
Well, it's not a question, but it's also not correct. Just to be clear, the current status is the city rejected the initial site plan. We have never given consent to any other plan. The motion the motion that was approved by General Committee last week approved the school board's second site plan submission, but it did not move the school, nor did it commit to the other building.
So the school has had no previous position to go ahead as long as they put a building on the corner?
That has never been approved by council.
Well, that's my understanding, so we need to have a conversation about this, I think. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Browne. And,
Thank you very much.
I won't look to you for any further information. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other questions of clarification? Councilor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Mr. Browne, why are you doing this?
Why am I doing this? Well, I think that, as I mentioned, I think that I don't know how many times this site plan has been rejected in the past, so I'm not going to give a number because that would be false information, but I know that it has been rejected several times before. on the basis that it does not meet urban design guidelines set out by the City of Barrie. So, with the minimal or no changes made to the initial site plan from, like I said, I believe it was December 2014, I do not see a reason for council to budge on their initial decision to reject the site plan, and I believe that it should be, if the school board wants the school built, as they say they do, that they should be the ones who decide that they are going to do what it takes to get a site plan in that has not been seen before and that meets urban design guidelines set out by the city.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions of clarification? Mr. Browne, I will thank you very much for your deputation and for your responses to the questions. Thank you for coming to council tonight.
Thank you very much, Mayor Lehman.
Our second deputation tonight is by Cheryl Schneider regarding motion 16G140. Are any opposed? None. That carries. Brings us to section G. Councilor Morales.
And section G, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor McCann. That section G of the General Committee report dated June 6, 2016, now circulated, be adopted.
It's moved by Councilor Morales, seconded by Councilor McCann, that section G of the General Committee report dated June 6, 2016, now circulated, be adopted. This is with regards to the South Barrie Secondary School, 225 Prince William Way site plan approval, second submission. Councilor Ward.
Mayor Lehman, I'll just be brief. In the light of the fact that there's a councillor missing tonight and we have an even number of councillors, I'll ask that this motion be tabled for 2 weeks, I guess it would be, till the next council meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Ward. A tabling motion is in order. Madam Clerk, it requires 4 members of council, and it is debatable. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the tabling motion, please indicate. And I am in favor as well, and that's 4. The item is tabled for 2 weeks. Council will make a decision, or the matter will return to council in 2 weeks' time. Section H, please.